Daphne Lee is our next speaker. Daphne Lee is a homemaker raising her family of three children with her husband of 14 years. She has been a civil liberties activist as Clark County chapter head of People Against the NDAA, or PANDA for short, since 2012. She was both a state and county delegate for the Nevada Republican Party and has been a central committee for the Republican Party in both Nevada and Clark County. She served as Resolutions Committee member for the state's party convention, where she helped pass a resolution condemning the indefinite detention provisions of the 2012 National Defense Authorization Act. She has been interviewed by Channel 3 News, The Agenda, What's Your Point, the Ron Paul Channel, and international filmmaker Werner Boot on topics from the NDAA and drones to the invasive intellielites, street light system, and personal privacy. Daphne was also able to successfully get to the Clark County Commission to condemn the 2012 NDAA and helped a similar bill in Nevada legislature get over 16 co-sponsors. Daphne can help activists deal with inter-party politics and pushing legislation at the local and state level, both in government and politics. Ladies and gentlemen, happy to present to you Daphne Lee.
Hi guys, thank you for having me.
And thank you so much for being with us, Daphne. I'm Dan Johnson, president of the Solutions Institute. I'll be asking you a few questions. That we're talking about how to reach out to Middle America. And I met Daphne back in 2012 in Tampa, Florida at Paul Festival, just outside the Republican National Convention. And I think I violated one of the first rules of organizing, which is I actually didn't call you back for like a month afterward. I've really been impressed with Daphne. I mean, she has been one of the hardest working activists I know, and she really has done her best and done a great job reaching out to Middle America. I posted a speech in the chat called "I'm Just a Mom." Daphne Lee gives a powerful speech against the NDAA in Clark County, Nevada. It's been viewed over 300,000 times, and it really is an example of how Daphne can reach out to Middle America. So I want to start kind of on a personal note. When you first got into politics, what made you go from full-time soccer mom to half-time soccer mom, half-time activist?
I've always voted. I always read the paper, always watched the news. I felt I was doing my civic duty my entire adult life. But the 2012 elections for president, when I got involved with the Ron Paul campaign here in Nevada, and actually I learned so much by getting involved with that presidential campaign and learning what a delegate was, what a caucus was. I didn't even know what that was. What's a central committee? I didn't know these people were meeting every other month. And just basically stumbling into this stuff and going through the process, that entire presidential cycle. And I even went with our delegates to Tampa, which is where I met you. I saw a lot of things that really, honestly, we all hear that politics is corrupt and all of these things, but I saw for myself firsthand how bad it was, the media bias, media blackout, people cheating at conventions. It really made me realize that being a passive citizen and voting, those kind of activities I had done before, it certainly was nowhere near enough. And I needed to be more actively involved if I was really going to make a difference. Screaming at your TV doesn't do much.
So bring us to the decision point. You go from I know there's something wrong to I'm going to do something about it. What's that decision point like, and how do you go from I know there's something wrong to I'm actually going to take physical action to do something about it? What was that decision point like? Kind of walk us through your thought process, because this is a decision that every new activist has to make.
Well, I think that everybody's journey is different. Based on your own personal experiences in life. For me, everything that I've done in the last couple of years, I almost feel like has been a stumbling act, but I know that there's me taking certain actions that have created certain opportunities for me as I've gone along. And it just, it began that day it began for me deciding to get involved in that campaign election, and committing to going to a state convention, and committing to go across the nation to be a witness of what was going on for the Republican National Convention. And that's where I met you. And then you called me and asked me if I wanted to help. And it was me making that decision right then. Yes, I will help. What can I do? And just, I mean, it just seems like every time you take an action, there's more opportunities that just land in your lap. And the more involved, the more meetings you go to, or whatever you can contribute to, inevitably just opens more opportunities for you as you go along. So it's just about taking that first step, and you'll find as you go through your own personal path, whatever it may be, things will come to you that I believe in fate. I feel like everything happens for a reason. I feel like things have come to me that were meant for me. And that's when, I just kind of am just going along and seeing what comes my way.
And kind of following up on that point, a lot of people shy away from public speaking, but you were willing to step up to a microphone not once, but multiple times. So what was your thought process when you first decided to actually speak? Was it like, yeah, I'm going to do this, let's go? Or were you like more apprehensive, like, I can't believe I'm walking up to a microphone right now?
Well, I had never done radio interviews, TV interviews, gone and spoken at a public meeting. I think one of my friends, it was actually the podcasters that put out the audio of that meeting first. They had asked me, I think, to do my first actual speaking event on their podcast. And they were super kind, and they helped walk me through my first experience. I was really nervous. I mean, to be honest with you, I still get nervous. I just did an interview for a TV program, news program, like a couple of weeks ago. And I thought, okay, I've been practicing this stuff, and I feel way more comfortable than I used to. But as soon as that light shined on my face, I was like, my hands were shaking. It's just, I think, something that takes practice. And I think if you start with people that are going to be more friendly to you and help you and not try to sabotage you, you go through a couple of those experiences first before you take on some kind of like antagonistic kind of interview. So I definitely had a lot of kind of dry runs, practice runs with people that I accepted interviews for, that I knew were going to be kind to me, and they weren't going to try to sabotage me or make me sound dumb, and that they were going to help me along if I was stumbling. So that would be my advice, is start in friendly territory to kind of get your bearings, and it will get easier every time you do it. But I mean, I still get nervous. So.
Okay. That's great. So you gave a speech at this Clark County Commission meeting in late December of 2013. And you're opposing the indefinite detention provisions of the NDAA. But before you gave the speech, the commission made you wait a while. Why? Why did they make you wait? And how long was the wait?
That is related to what we just talked about. The first, I went to my first county commission meeting, which I had never been to in my life. And I watched. It was actually about the drones resolution they were passing to make Nevada a test site for domestic drones. And I didn't know the rules, the regulations, any of that stuff. So I just sat there and observed that first time and watched other people. And I saw that some people could speak at certain times. So I highly recommend you go figure out what the open meeting laws are in your state, in your county. Watch if you don't have time to drive down there and go down there physically, but you can watch a few online. Usually cable networks carry your local county commission or city council meetings, and watch if you go down there, kind of get a sense of how things are run. I would do a dry run before I actually went down there and spoke, and that's what I did. And then I, talked to a friend, some friends of mine who had spoken, and they kind of gave me the lay of how things worked, so I knew what to do. And so the first time I went down there, you have to really think about, how are you going to approach them? You must always, in my opinion, this is just my opinion, I feel like you catch more flies with honey than vinegar. So you want to get your point across, you want to be firm, but you also want to be respectful, because honestly, after everything I've been through in the last couple of years, you don't want to go stepping on toes that you might need, connected to people you might need later on down the road. You can have your battles with them, but if you're respectful, then the next time they might be on the same side of an issue with you and you have that open dialogue. If you're disrespectful, some people, you know, I understand everyone has their rules, and some people get so mad and go down there and banging fists, and they're just so upset. And I understand all that. And I think that there are places for certain people who are passionate like that. But if you're going to be a long-term activist, you want to make sure that you're doing things the right way from jump, and be professional, be respectful, but also be firm in what you believe. And so I got up there the first time and I knew what I wanted to say, and I had it written down, because you will get nervous. And same thing as with the light shining on your face. As soon as you get up to that microphone and you feel the whole room looking at you, you know, you kind of make that decision. For me, it was like, you have to pull your inner courage and say, this is more important, me speaking out about this, than how nervous I am or how afraid I am to speak out. And you should read off. I mean, I read off of mine because I really did get nervous the first time I spoke. And as long as you have something with you to prod you along if you get stuck, and you've rehearsed it before you go, make sure you rehearse it. You should be fine. I mean, my voice gets a little shaky sometimes, and I got a little shaky because, you know, like I said, I was getting nervous. I really hadn't done a lot of public speaking. But the next time and the next time was a little bit easier for me every time I did it. So it'll get easier for you too.
We say this with the county.
Dan?
Yeah, Dan's breaking up.
Well,
Bobby, jump in.
Oh, did I not answer your question about?
Hi,
Dan?
Daphne. This is Bobby Rodrigo. We had a little technical difficulty with Dan Johnson, so
Okay.
I am jumping in. Dan, are you back? No, he's not. Okay. So
So they made me wait 8 hours that day. I completely got off the point of that question. Anyways,
that's okay.
what happened that day is I had been down there twice, and I had read the resolution that had already been passed by the city council, and I had read how many states and cities and counties had already passed a similar resolution out loud in 2 separate public speaking things. And I had been behind the scenes emailing them and asking them to bring this resolution to the agenda. That particular morning, I actually happened to be friends on Facebook with one of the commissioners. I had kind of posted that I was going down there and I was very frustrated, and I was going to really hold their feet to the fire. It was a big meeting. There was a cops tax. The whole place was going to be filled with people that morning. And so that was my opportunity to really bring this forth, that they had been putting me off in front of a very large crowd of people. And so that morning when I got down there and I went to speak in the beginning, which he had allowed me to do every single time before then, and which you should be allowed to do, that morning he cut me off because he knew what my intentions were. And he used a part of the rule saying that I would have to wait till the end, and basically kind of railroaded me to wait to the end. And so I was very upset that he would not. It was a 2-minute spiel that I was going to give, and he knew how I felt about it. And I was very upset that he basically was going to make me give my 2-minute spiel in front of nobody, because obviously after 8 hours, nobody's at those meetings. And I was just really upset because he had been acting like he was a friend of mine and that he was going to be helpful to me. And I felt very betrayed because obviously he just basically silenced me. So I walked outside. I kind of shed a couple of tears. I was a little upset. I couldn't believe he was doing that to me. And then I decided, okay, I'll wait. And so I did. I waited 8 hours there, and I sat right there in the front of that meeting the whole entire time. And I just waited for him. So sometimes you got to make those choices. Are you going to let somebody bully you? And if I would have left that day, I realized now he totally would have won. And so while it's not pleasant to sit at a county commission meeting for 8 hours, obviously it was well worth the wait. It proved a point, and I ended up getting what I wanted in the end. So that was finishing the answering that question. Sorry.
No, that's okay. That's perfect. I'm curious after an experience like that, especially with somebody who is so close to you, or not close to you, but who you consider a friend, I guess would be the right way to say it. How did that change your perception, if anything, when it came to dealing with politicians?
Well, and that's been part of my journey. I'm the kind of person who I've learned I'm a little I don't want to say naive because I mean I've lived in Las Vegas my whole life. I don't think I'm naive, but I think that I tend to treat people how they would like how I would treat people. You know, there's an old saying, the thief thinks everyone else is a thief. Well, you know, you tend to look at people from your own perspective, and I've learned the hard way that people don't always think the way you do, and their intentions aren't always going to be good. And there are selfish people out there in the world, unfortunately, and people are going to let you down. And so I've had to learn that I can't think that everyone's going to do what's right just because it's right. And you've laid out this beautiful argument for why everything should go this way because it's the right thing to do, because in reality, they won't do what's right. It's what's best for them at that time. They're very, very selfish. And Dan and my partner Chris, like, they had to kind of remind me of that along the way, because I'm a very personable person and I like to build relationships. And sometimes, you know, I kind of fall for it a little bit. Sometimes I get, you know, like, this guy's kind of cool, or this I like this lady, I like what she's got to say about that, and they'd remind me they're a politician. Daphne, don't fall for it. So thank goodness I had a great network of support to keep me reminded that you can't trust them. Is even the ones that you really, really want to trust, honestly, you just got to keep reminding yourself that, you know, and prepare yourself to be disappointed.
Certainly, and understanding how the cesspool of Las Vegas is. I actually myself have followed Las Vegas politics back when the if you remember, the Frank Conforti trial some years ago, where I believe Oscar Goodman was the defense attorney at that time, and I'm sure you're familiar with who Oscar Goodman is, being
Yes.
in Las Vegas politics. So it is interesting out there, no doubt, and even the major publications. How is the major publications out there been receiving what has been going on, if at all? Have you noticed, like the Las Vegas Sun, for example, or anything like that?
I actually canceled my subscription to the RJ, which held the Sun in it once a week, like 2 years ago. It was after it was after the state convention, and I got home from Las Vegas, and at that convention, the Romney campaign had done like 3 separate things that were really, really disgraceful in trying to cheat. They like tried to add extra people and put out this fake slate. There was a lot of shenanigans going on, but we overcame it gracefully. But when I got home from Las Vegas, because I was in Northern Nevada, the RJ, the front page of my hometown newspaper said Ron Paul delegates causing a ruckus at state convention. And I was like, oh my gosh, what are you talking about? Like, the Mitt campaign was cheating the whole time, and we had to, like, thank God we had really, really smart people that knew how to run parliamentary situations so that they were trying to cheat. And I read the article, and it was wrong, and it was biased, and so I just canceled my subscription. I'll read some online stuff now and then, obviously, because it's the only local papers and stuff, but I've really lost my faith in our local media here as far as the newspaper goes. I mean, I've been interviewed once, and even that guy tried to run what I said as a slant. So I'm just not a real fan of our personal Las Vegas's local journalism right now. It doesn't really have the integrity that I'm looking for. Some of the news stations are a little better than the others, but you know, you just got to be cautious when you are interacting with media, because unfortunately not everybody, I mean, for me, Channel 3 has been, there's a lot of good people there that I actually would trust to do interviews with, because I've seen them do a lot of things with integrity. But there are certain other outlets where I would go into it definitely very cautiously.
Certainly. A question from the chat wing. This is from Drew Forsetti. How do you go about preparing for your appearances?
Well, you know, I was a cheerleader in high school, and our advisor used to always say, you know, remember, even when you're not in your uniform, everybody's watching you. And Mrs. Pollard's words still ring true to this day. I think that from the beginning, whether it's a meeting that you go to, whether it's a group that you go to, whatever you do when you're representing yourself as an activist, even if it's just your presence online, once you start down that road, especially since you are going to be dealing with politicians, you're going to be dealing with party hacks, you're going to be dealing with a lot of unsavory characters, you have to, one, make sure that you're protecting yourself, and two, always present yourself professionally. So I make it a point, whether it's the most casual event or if I'm going to go speak, to make sure that I dress completely appropriately. Obviously I mean, I have friends that will go down in, their, like I said, everyone has their role, but for me, it's like, if I'm going to be like a leadership kind of activist here in town, for me, I think the more you dress professionally and you carry yourself professionally, and I mean that means, like, we've all seen them, the drunk lady at the Central Committee meeting, or the person who's getting involved with shenanigans at the convention. Like, you just have to keep in mind that you can have a good time, you can have fun, but just always remember there might be eyes on you that you're not aware of, and to always carry yourself and dress completely professionally. That's my advice. And so far, I think it works out. I think it just lends credibility. If you wear, a 9/11 Truther t-shirt, which some of, my activists wear down to that meetings, it's like, as much as I love them and I think that they have every right to say what they want to say, I see the reaction from the council as soon as they walk up. So it's unfortunate that, and you can do whatever you want. I'm not trying to say, people shouldn't do what they want, but in my experience, I choose to try to be incredibly professional, because it's kind of like a shield for you. It keeps people, they can't really tear you down because you're dressed professionally, you're carrying yourself professionally, the way you speak, you're being professional. So they can't just throw you into a group of crazy people. They always like to, label us all crazy for caring. So that's the way I defend against that anyways.
Fantastic. This is often one of the very first questions for the politically engaged. What can I do? How do you help others answer that question?
There's a meme put out by Anonymous that says, true leaders don't create leaders, or true leaders don't create followers, they create leaders. I think that everyone has to do what's right for them and what's right for their family. My husband, we have 3 kids. I'm, running around constantly. I have a lot of stuff to do, managing my household. And he gets a little frustrated sometimes because he feels like I spend a lot of time on activism, and, it doesn't necessarily pay in the traditional sense of the matter. But he also, over time, has realized that he's a successful businessman, and when we go out now, people want to talk to me about what I'm doing, and instead of doing your usual blasé like conversations about maybe whatever, what you're doing on the weekend or whatever, now he's finding that his friends and his business colleagues want to have deep intellectual conversations with me about politics here in Nevada, and over time he's seen how respected I've become. And so everyone has to do what's comfortable for their family, but I try to not take on too much, but I try to remain as active as I can. So it's a balance you got to figure out for yourself, and in your particular situation. But as long as you're doing anything, it's better than nothing. So that's the way I look at it.
You there?
Yeah, hello?
Hello?
I hear a tiny
Sorry
voice.
about that.
It's okay.
Thank you so much for appearing today on today's ActCon conference, Daphne. We look
You're
forward
welcome.
to
I
seeing
hope
you
that,
again.
helped
That was-
somebody out there.
Absolutely. It was a great presentation, and we really appreciate it, and always the best, and we look forward to working with you in the future, of course.
Absolutely. Good luck to all of you out there, and thank you for joining us here today. I mean, watching a conference, I spent many hours on conference calls, learning and listening, and Dan Johnson was a huge part of educating me on a lot of this stuff, and without those meaningful meetings and learning as much as I did, I wouldn't be where I am today. So you've already taken the first step in being a successful activist, which is just communicating with really good people around you and learning from other people. So I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you guys.